have to, because that's how family actually gets.
Listen to me. I don't have to. He
Chrissy.
has to. That's your son.
No,
He has to. I don't
you
have
have to remember.
This is a choice.
Once you and him get married, and really, as far as I'm concerned, y'all are married, okay? And if you're part of him, okay, and that means he's definitely me, that means that you're part of me.
As Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampin engaged in a furious fight, the tension in the room was evident. Friends and relatives were standing close, exchanging glances, and unsure of how to step in. You think you can just talk to me like that? Jim, known for his fiery temper, was rapidly getting worse, and Chrissy was not backing down. Chrissy yelled, "You've crossed a line," her voice trembling with a mixture of shock and rage. Jim became quite irate, saying, "You don't get to dictate how I handle things." His face reddened with emotion. He barked. As he stepped closer, the tension in the air crackled, and his eyes suddenly narrowed shockingly. Shift, everyone in the room gasped in shock and became silent as he smacked Chrissy across the face. The atmosphere in the room suddenly changed dramatically as everyone processed what had just happened. Jim's son, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward. "He had seen enough, Dad. That's enough. You can't treat her like that." His voice was firm and filled with a mixture of concern and indignation. "Stay out of this," Jim snapped, but his son stood his ground determinedly. Her hand flew to her cheek in shock. Her voice now sounded like an intense fury. "You've lost your mind." "I won't. You can't simply slap her and hope everything works out. Dad, you're better than this." Tension in the room increased as the confrontation played out and spectators watched. "You think you know how to govern my life? I'm the one who sets the rules here, so you're making a big mistake," Jim said, his voice frozen in amazement. "This isn't how you manage difficulties. Instead, you're pushing people away." His disappointed son retorted, shaking his head. Chrissy, still in shock from the slap, stepped forward, and her voice became more steady. "You should now pay attention to him. This is toxic, Jim, and I won't put up with it." Her tone was resolute, driven by his son's backing, and it broke through the tension like a knife in a fit of rebellion. The words, "If you think this is okay, then maybe you need to leave. This isn't the man I look up to," hung heavy in the air, making Jim's face turn a deeper shade of red as embarrassment and rage bubbled up. "You think you can kick me out of my own house?" he growled, but his son didn't waver. "Yes, I can. If this is how you treat the people you love, then you're not welcome here. You need to get your act together." The tension in the room was palpable, and everyone was holding their breath as Jim struggled with the confrontation. He spit out a low, strained voice, trapped between comprehension and wrath. "If that's how things are going to be, then I'll leave with that." A wave of relief washed over Chrissy and his kid as Jim raced out the front door, slamming it behind him. "Are you okay?" his son said, concern visible on his face as he turned to face Chrissy, who nodded even though her emotions were still raw. "It's not just about the slap, it's about everything that led up to it, and I still can't believe he crossed that line. We need to stand our ground. This isn't just about today, it's about what we allow in our lives to move forward," his son retorted, shaking his head. They both inhaled deeply. The realization that this was more than simply a physical fight and that they needed to wake up after sitting in the quiet room, they realized Jim was spiraling. "I've always cared about him, but I can't let this continue," Chrissy said in a soft but firm voice. "I won't let him treat me or anyone like that anymore." His son nodded in agreement. "We need to address this as a family. If he's willing to change, then maybe there's hope, but if not, we have to protect ourselves." The conversation lingered in the air, filling both of hope and uncertainty. Hours went by and the sun started to set, filling the room with a warm warmth. "Do you believe he'll return?" His behavior wouldn't be simple, but it was required. "I don't know," Chrissy said with a note of anxiety in her voice, "but if he does, we need to be prepared. We can't just brush this under the rug. It's time to have an open discussion." As the evening went on, Chrissy and his son's bond became stronger. By sticking together during the poisonous wave, they created a safe haven. Though they knew the road ahead would be difficult, they were ready. When Jim came back later, they were all determined to create a healthy workplace. Would be under a new understanding that change had been made possible, and Chrissy and his son were prepared to go through it together in a sleek, contemporary studio where there was a quiet buzz of expectation. "I'll get right to the point. For years, I thought I had it all figured out, love, success, and a future with Chrissy. But recently, I discovered something that shattered everything I believed in. My wife, Chrissy Lampin, stole my $7 million. Jim Jones sits across from the camera, the weight of his emotions evident on his face as he leans forward, ready to unveil a shocking chapter of his life. He pauses to let the gravity of his words sink in. "You hear me?" On camera, as if daring anyone to dispute his truth. $7 million isn't little change. I had to start my career from scratch, working hard every day to establish my reputation, only to discover that the person I trusted the most was working against me. A betrayal I never saw coming. Jim leans back and shakes his head in shock. It began with a few small things, like some odd transactions or money missing from accounts. At first, I thought it might just be mismanagement or some inadequate investments, but I decided to look into it further because I had to know what was going on. What I discovered was like a scene from a movie. His expression changed to one of serious hurt and anger. Jim takes a deep breath, the pain still fresh. Account transactions that led to places I never agreed to. Chrissy had been moving my money around like it was her own personal piggy bank. The shock of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, we built our lives together. I thought we were a team. He leans forward again, intensity radiating from him when I confronted her. The denial, the excuses, it was surreal. Here was someone I considered my partner, my ride or die, and she was staring me in the eye, acting as though it was all in my head. The most painful thing is that I'm not one to air out dirty laundry, but this isn't just about money. It's about respect. It's about the foundation of what we were supposed to have. I've learned the hard way that sometimes the people closest to you can be the ones who hurt you the most. His gaze softens as he muses on the journey ahead. Would have given her the world I wanted to build a future with her, but instead, she chose to betray that trust and love are supposed to be about honesty and loyalty. It will take time, but I'm picking up the pieces and concentrating on my music and brand. I won't let. This sums up who I am. I'm taking my power back one step at a time with a determined gaze because I've come too far to let one betrayal hold me back. After Jim finishes, the room feels charged with a mix of resilience and heartbreak, a testament to a man ready to reclaim his narrative and forge a new path forward. I hope this serves as a wake-up call for anyone out there who thinks they know their partner to trust your instincts and always keep your eyes open. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. Following a mysterious post that Chrissy Lampin made on her Instagram story on Friday, September 20, it has been reported that Jim Jones and his longtime girlfriend have called it quits. Chrissy Lampin: I know that neither of us would ever find someone like me. Therefore, I wrote you. Though the reason for the post is unknown, the couple's relationship has a lengthy and well-documented history. They met nearly 20 years ago after a 2004 encounter in a Harlem lounge, and in 2011, Jim joined the cast of Love and Hip Hop New York. Although the couple seemed to care deeply for one another, it was clear that Jim Jones frequently had doubts about marrying Chrissy, as she revealed later in the series when she proposed to the We Fly High rapper. Although he did say yes when she got down on one knee, the couple has not yet tied the knot. December 13, New York, Chrissy Lampin L. Photo by Johnny Noon's wire shot of Jim Jones backstage at Dusa Pala at Barclays Center on December 13, 2019 in New York City. Eventually, it has to stop. After he suggested that they finally get married on VH1's third season of Family Reunion Love and Hippie, Chrissy Lampin tells Jim Jones that by 2021, despite their 18 years of dating, she is over the idea of marriage. She unexpectedly replied, no, adding, you want me to be this loving sexual crazy, cook this, that, and the other, but you come home and you're mean and you're cold and you're distant. The couple engaged in a heated back and forth during which Jones admitted his transgressions and fear of marriage. I have always been. I don't want you to think that I'm selfish in the slightest because I love you more than anything in this world. It's been a long road, but in Chrissy's opinion, it has to end eventually. The living room is dimly lit. Clothes are strewn all over, and an open laptop is sitting on the coffee table. Is the man of my family, so all I know how to do is try to support and try to make money. With tears in her eyes, Chrissy grips her phone tightly and stares at it in shock as she sits on the couch. She scrolls through a series of images that show Jim laughing and holding hands with another lady. With a mix of fury and grief on Chrissy's face, the front door opens and Jim strolls in. Unaware of the tension, Jim freezes when he sees Chrissy's upset expression. Concern floods his face. Chrissy tenses up her body and shows him the pictures on her phone. Jim runs a hand through his hair, obviously trying to think of the perfect words, and his face becomes pale as he realizes what she's talking about. Chrissy glances away, attempting to absorb her feelings as she shakes her head and tears fall down her cheeks. Jim moves a step closer, trying to explain himself with a look of desperation in his eyes. With a heavy heart, Chrissy crosses her arms to distance herself emotionally. Jim stands back, his face displaying guilt. After a time, Jim nods. Recognizing the gravity of his actions, he quietly exits the room. Chrissy falls onto the couch and begins to cry, the foam falling from her grasp as she stares aimlessly at the clothes strewn all around her, feeling abandoned and deceived. The camera pans back, capturing the devastation in the space as Chrissy tries to find calm amid the chaos.